Hello and welcome to Pricing College with your hosts Aidan Campbell
and Joanna Wells.
There is an old saying in pricing that demand collapses when pricing goes from zero or free to even just 1 cent or 1 penny. And so we want to discuss that today, and it's something that anybody in a startup business or a company providing freemium services should really consider when they're looking to move to a monetization or to actually start making money, because often you can build a huge audience, certainly on social media and those things, when it's free, but trying to move to a revenue structure, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, with the in a way, it reminds me of psychological pricing, and I think a lot of psychological pricing has come from this idea of price point sensitivity, and then trying to think about what's the human response to price points. I'll give an example. Often you can see with perishable goods where there's quite a lot of price sensitivity around those sort of goods, that if you do change the price point up even by a cent, then the volume just drops off. People just don't buy it. So I'm thinking, if you can recall, there's a product called Gourmet Garden that there's like herbs in a tube. They, not a new idea anymore, but when they first came out, it was a fairly novel type of product. And for many years, I was noting that they always hovered around the $3.99 price point. And sometimes they would go to $4, but often come back down to $3.99 very, very quickly. And thinking about that, there was a psychological threshold with customers to that $4 that they really wouldn't. They would just stop buying it, even if they knew the utility of that product. They couldn't get past that point. And for many years, I wondered, how that company probably did in terms of profitability, because they're producing quite top quality products, but obviously not getting the volume they wanted and the price point that they wanted for that. So obviously had to try various things, which they did, which shrinkflation, making even the jar size even bigger, because they couldn't change that price point. But funny enough, I'm just looking at this Gourmet Garden example now. They're now at like $4.05. So over time, they have gradually moved the market to that price point. So that then speaks to something called price positioning as well.
I think is that referred to as price cliffs and those sort of things, where there are natural impediments to price rises. I suppose the ultimate price cliff is, what we're discussing, which is between 0 and 1 cent, which is, 1 cent, no one's really going to charge 1 cent. But I suppose you look at the barriers to why would somebody move from zero. When it's zero, you don't provide a credit card, you don't have to pay anything. Generally, you don't have to give them your information. You're not committing to stuff. And when you move to a payment system, I suppose the relationship changes completely. You'll have to provide a credit card, whether on a direct debit system or auto charge or prepay, and that immediately will put off an awful lot of people who, A, don't have the money, B, they actually will completely reevaluate how they value this product or service. And let's be honest, if something is free, infinitely free in infinite quantities, you don't really have to put any time into putting a value on it. You don't have to, theoretically, it can be worthless to you, and you'll still consume it in large amounts. So when you put a price on something, the complete value negotiation changes, the complete structure of the discussion changes, and what many people will take for nothing, because it's just of no pain to them. The pain will start, and when I mean pain, I mean they're trading something for that. They're trading credit card details, entering stuff into the system, even giving passwords, all that stuff, even just to be 1 cent. And if you obviously, any sustainable business will want to go beyond that to really make your business sustainable, you'll have to charge much more than 1 cent, unless in some very unusual circumstances. So it's, I think this is in startups. People often look at businesses that have very large network effects, huge numbers of users, but can they actually move into, an actual business model? And I think even famous companies like Facebook have seen this, whereby, I think they went to an advertising model. It was almost impossible for them to get their users to actually pay.
Well, I think there with, the startup pricing and the freemium model, I think it was a sort of a naive assumption by startup founders to believe that pricing is separate from the business model. But often when businesses start up, they assume it's just more of an administrative task as opposed to something that drives strategy. It's highly connected to the business model. And I think that freemium trial was, in a way, showcased that mistake. And what have they done subsequently? Well, now they connect they don't call it freemium anymore. It's like a free trial, and they've cut it to a time limit, often 30 days. And once you sign up to the free trial, you're giving them something. You're actually giving them straight away your details. You're giving them the credit card details. And what have we learnt when we do that in a busy life that we all lead? We go, all right, we'll sign up. Oh, there's no commitment. I can always easily back out. But then you often forget, and it's a roll-on contract. By which time, obviously, they're hoping that you enjoy this new service, that you become used to it, you know how to use it. It's no longer novel, but you appreciate the novelty factor and all the value that they offer. Yes and no to some extent, but I think in terms of the payment model, what they've really tried to do, and I don't know if that's the best way, it's almost like a punitive sort of model where, you just have to, opt in and opt out yourself. I'm in two minds about that, but I've definitely noticed that they have increased the rules they've put around that and trying to, bring pricing back. So the old freemium model is no more. But I do see that this, regardless of whether we're in startup land or an established business, this shifting of price points, especially FMCGs are saying perishable snack food, that tiny little adjustments to price points can have a huge impact to volume.
I think it's when you're starting your business, when you're building your business, and what Joanna said earlier, that people thought they could separate pricing from the business model. Realistically, I think that's a terrible mistake. I think if you can grow, and we come back to Facebook here, and we'll say clearly Facebook makes a lot of money. Clearly Facebook, I think it's called Meta now actually, shows how old I am, almost like the average user of Facebook apparently. They say that they make a lot of money, but it's through advertising, and it's the old, like, what is your business? Is your business providing a product or service to customers, or is it, in theory, a platform to enable marketers to pay to market to people? And you could argue that in Facebook, in LinkedIn to a large extent, in these sort of platform businesses, that they are, in theory, they're marketing companies, they're marketing structures. They're just like the old billboard companies where they put up a billboard and drivers drive past on the highway, and you're allowed to market to them, segmented at a certain price. Whereas the billboard will be commuters driving into cities, Monday to Friday. Now with Facebook, you can slice and dice your marketing any way you want, and it hammers home that because people aren't paying, and it's that old, I've heard a saying that I really liked. It's, if you're not paying, you're actually the product. And I think in this instance, that's why it's so difficult to move from zero to even $1 or $1 or whatever the fee is, because when you move that, you're fundamentally changing the relationship. You're fundamentally changing it from being, you're the product, and you're swapping that from being you're the consumer of the product. And I think that would be the thing I'd say is, if you are the company and you're giving it away for free, what is the product and who is the consumer? And it may not be what you think it is.
Yeah, and I think on that point, this is where a lot of startups made the mistake. Like, I'm thinking of Canberra. It was just like, we're going to give everything away for free. It was almost an altruistic move. Is it advertising where we're giving something of value to everybody? It's a nice thought, but now they're constantly thinking of different types of ways to charge, like whether that's through a more speciality, type of graphic or icon or different fonts and all this sort of thing, trying to grapple with how they can actually make money from that sort of system. So sometimes I think startups get confused in their own mission, and they think that pricing and charging for it is in some way bad. But then it's going back to psychological pricing, where people need a price to understand the value. And it actually isn't a bad thing to charge, because people want to know what value is, and pricing is a cue. It's a cue of value. The right price indicates whether something is valuable or not, and really is what we're discussing with pricing. And if you get that price point wrong, you can lose a hell of a lot of value, volume, revenue, margin, but also in what we're discussing now, you can actually lose something in your business model and then forever try to reclaim that, because you get lost in your own mission and you forget the world around you and how we all sort of work and think as we try and change the world as startup founders.
Yeah, look, I suppose here at Pricing College, we focus on pricing. We focus on revenue, on profitability, on making your business survive. Clearly, there are companies out there who that isn't their model. Clearly, there are companies who make massive losses, sustained by investor funds, venture capital. And again, we're talking about the Canvas, we're talking about the, even the Amazons in their early days, who at least are moving towards a pricing strategy. Like, I'd have issues with Canva. Just this is a side note. I'm no investment guru, but I would have severe issues with Canva. I don't think they're able to cut off the supply enough to people. They can't minimize the service through the freemium. Like, I use Canva probably every week because it's easy, it's good, it's useful. But would I pay extra for it? The answer is probably not, because there are alternatives. And I think they will find it hard over time to really justify that valuation in the billions and billions based on a limited number of, it is a limited number of marketers in fancy companies who probably can also afford other suppliers. But that's just my view. I suppose though, what we're saying in this is, what does your company do? Fundamentally, if you're listening to Pricing College, you're probably thinking you want profit, you want money, almost old-fashioned shillings and pence to pay for staff, pay for bonuses, pay for all those other things that companies do. You don't have that venture capital funding in this instance, we're assuming, so you're not happy to make losses. But with that then, sheer user numbers, freemium, free users, unless you have a pathway to translate them into paying users, what is the benefit? Is it to grow a base that you can market to, a large audience? Are there network effects that can be beneficial to you, that you can sell them another product to? Or is it just a vanity metric that you think you are cool, that you think you are, the new Netflix because, 1 million people have seen you, or you done it for free, or whatever it is this month? And if that's the case, and if that makes you happy, that's great. But that's not the traditional measure of business. And I suppose it's not really what Pricing College, what our graduates focus on. Yeah,
I think sometimes as well that customers also want to they want to buy from you, but I think a lot of businesses, and this is including startups, have made it very difficult to buy from them, and it becomes confusing for a lot of customers. They're like, what's the exchange of value here? And I think Aidan was touching upon that point, but structure is something that people need. There are certain habits in the world, and they're good. They don't need to break everything. I mean, it's make it easy for customers to buy from you. Tell them what the deal is and how they can do it. And I think with the freemium model, that did somewhat delay the buying process, because people didn't really know what they were getting, and it interrupted profits for the business because they weren't getting paid for the value that they're offering. But what I'm saying is customers would have paid for it quite willingly. You just didn't need all that jazzy, trendy sort of freemium stuff. I mean, just because everybody else was doing doesn't mean it's cool for your business to do it. And we see it come to pass. That's why they're not doing it anymore. And it's called a free trial, and it's all got all these quarantines, it's time limited, etc., which have gone through. But the point is, sometimes giving customers structure, making it easy for them to buy, having a clear and very nice customer experience and journey right through to payment is what they want. life is complex, life is busy. They want to know, they want to have clear cues on value, they want to know why they're buying from you. If we just get that right, that's what Pricing College is about. It's really the exchange, defining the exchange of value and making it customer friendly, customer focused. And if you do that and your pricing's aligned to your customers, and then you see that your business model's not, then pricing is an excellent way, a leading indicator to show you if your business model's out of whack. So it always works in tandem, and it should never be considered, the two should never be considered independent of each other. So yeah, I suppose that's my thoughts on that. Aidan, have you got anything to say?
Call me old-fashioned. I like my cake and eat it too, and so I'm always a big fan in millions and millions of users, but all of them paying you lots of money. So we'll leave it there today. Have a great Easter. Bye.